John Kinsel serving life for the brutal rape of his girlfriend's daughter. She was just 10 years old, and her tearful testimony left the jury with no doubt. But shockingly, everyone in little Alyssa's family didn't believe it. They claim her story did not add up. But how could a child this young come up with such twisted details about a terrible crime? Turns out the truth was there all along, in the stories little girls were telling at a sleepover more than 20 years ago.
I remember all of us sitting in a circle on the bed. We were just sitting on the bed talking.
Lacey Plaisance, Alyssa's cousin, was one of 3 little girls at that sleepover. She remembers every detail of the conversation that would forever change the life of John Kinsel.
Our other friend had been sexually abused by her stepfather, and she confided in us. She kind of went into a little bit of detail with us, and it was pretty graphic. She had to go to counseling and things like that, and she confided in us, and she was talking to us about it. We all knew Alyssa's hate for John, and the thought of John coming back into the picture came around, and the other friend basically told Alyssa, if you don't want him around, all you have to do is say that he molested you and he's gone.
That horrific story would set Alyssa's wheels in motion. She could lie, and John would be gone. So she made up a story telling people John had been raping her.
I knew she was lying. Her story was exactly the same as another friend of ours who had actually been sexually abused.
For her family and friends, this was all too much, even for the notoriously untrustworthy Alyssa.
Well, I just broke down and asked her, like, why are you saying these things about John? Why are you saying these things? And she point blank straight told me that she made it up because she didn't like how John treated her mom. I was taken back, like, you have to make right of this. You can't do that.
It was too late. The story was already a firestorm, and authorities were dead set on protecting who they thought was an innocent little girl. But when the trial began, Alyssa's conscience finally caught up with her.
Alyssa was very, very scared. I heard her through the phone. She just didn't want to go through it. And they told us it didn't matter what she was willing to go through that day or not, that they had already had it on camera testifying, so that was going to hold up whether she did it or not.
So Alyssa testified, and John Kinsel got life with hard labor, without parole. Now, finally, 16 years later, Alyssa comes to Crime Watch Daily to set the record straight. She doesn't want to show her face, but she wants to reveal the truth.
John is an innocent man, and he does not deserve to be in prison. I had no idea what I told that counselor was going to be such a huge thing. I had no idea what would happen to him. I didn't think that far ahead.
When Alyssa turned 19, the nauseating weight of sending an innocent man away forever was finally too much to bear.
I do wish that I could take it back. My younger brother grew up without his father in his life, and no child needs that. You know, he missed his daughter's wedding. He's missed a couple of his sisters have passed away. He wasn't able to go to their funerals. You know, there are important life events that a father should be a part of, and he's missed all of it because of where he is.
Alyssa vowed she wouldn't live her horrible lie any longer.
I had contacted John's lawyers and told them that I wanted to meet with them and recant my testimony. I spent my own dime, drove 1,500 miles, and we went back to court. And in front of everyone, I recanted my testimony.
Despite Alyssa changing her story, John Kinsel still sits behind bars. State trial judge Charles Cusimano isn't sure what to make of Alyssa's recantation, saying, quote, "I don't know at which time I'm supposed to believe her," unquote. But without her testimony, he's compelled to order a new trial for John.
I thought that John was going to come home. I really thought he was going to come home. I thought he was going to walk out of the courtroom with us that day.
Then, just as the family's hopes are raised, the Louisiana Supreme Court shoots them down. They agree that Alyssa's testimony and recantation are preposterously unreliable, but that his conviction at the time was legitimate. Adding, quote, "It is beyond regrettable that a possibly innocent man will not receive a new trial." Bottom line, no second chances for John Kinsel.
I figured that once I told the truth that his conviction would be overturned, that they would let him out, and that didn't happen at all. Louisiana justice system, right? Gotta love it.
Just because someone says it didn't happen, it doesn't mean that they hold the keys to the jail. And if you think about it, it makes sense. The only thing that could save you would be overturn it on some sort of post-conviction relief.
Tragically, with all appeals exhausted, another chance to prove John didn't rape Alyssa may never come, even though everyone says he's innocent, including the 10-year-old girl, now a 29-year-old woman who put him in prison.
I do carry a lot of guilt. That day that we were in court 10 years ago and I recanted, in passing, I apologized and I said I was sorry. And I'm sorry is never going to be enough.
Now, for more on this crazy story, let me bring in criminal defence attorney Diana Eisman. Diana, there's so much about this. It has been all the way up now to the Supreme Court. They've denied the writ.
Right.
So if you are John Kinsel and you're sitting in prison thinking, is there any chance for me yet, what would you say to him?
Honestly, there's such a slim chance. The only way that he could possibly get out earlier is by having his case pardoned by the governor and having his sentence commuted. And there isn't a governor in these 50 states that's going to release a convicted child molester.
So looking at this case, you think the reality is that this guy actually spends the rest of his life in prison?
Sadly, yes.
Diana, can I ask you more broadly about what it means, how much weight it carries in a courtroom when a victim recants their testimony like this? I mean, this was a traumatised child. Is it always cut and dry when they say yes and then they say no?
It's not always cut and dry. Actually, it's really common for a victim of a violent crime to recant their testimony, especially when we're dealing with a defendant who is someone that they know or is someone that they're related to. It happens all the time, so much so that they actually have prosecution witnesses that are experts in this field that will come up and testify that recanting victims is part of the cycle of violence.
Well, it can be highly complicated. Now, though, we want to hear from you. Do you think John Kinsel deserves a new trial? You can sound off right now at our Facebook page.